My CEO husband thought I would never leave. Then he saw me standing beside the world's richest billionaire. The conference room smelled like money and cheap coffee. Same as always, 12 executives, two private equity guys from Palo Alto, and my husband, Julian Vance, sitting at the head of the table like he'd personally invented gravity. I kept my pen moving across the legal pad, not because I needed to take notes, but because it stopped me from saying things I couldn't unsay yet. Julian tapped his Mont Blanc against the glass tabletop. Clara's input is helpful, he said, dragging the word out like it had an expiration date, but not decisive. A few of them laughed. Not the PE guys, they were smarter than that, but the internal crowd. The ones who owed their bonuses to Julian's mood. I didn't look up. If I looked up, they'd see it, and I wasn't ready for them to see it yet. We're moving forward with the Series D terms as drafted. Julian continued. No amendments from legal. We don't have time to overthink the fine print. That was my department, or used to be. I leaned back. Slow. Actually, the liability carve-out in section 4 will crater us if the EU antitrust review hits during Q3. I ran the numbers last night. Julian smiled, the kind of smile he used when he wanted the room to know I was a background app, not the operating system. Clara, sweetheart, we're building a rocket ship. Sometimes you have to lighten the payload. One of the junior VPs, a kid named Derek who still wore his Yale club tie to work, snorted. Julian didn't shut him down. He let it sit there. A little gift to me. I closed my notebook. Fine. Let's lighten the payload. The meeting ended exactly 12 minutes later. Julian stood, shaking hands, tossing around phrases like aggressive growth and founder-led vision. I gathered my things and headed for the door. He caught my wrist in the hallway outside the boardroom. You're pissed, he said, not like it mattered. I'm efficient, I said, pulling free. You told the room I'm not decisive. That's not pissed. That's math. He laughed, low and easy. You know, this company runs on my vision, not your footnotes. Don't make it weird. Clara, I looked at him, really looked. The jawline that used to feel like a promise, the eyes that used to see me. Now they just saw a reflection of himself. Right, I said. Wouldn't want to make it weird. By 6 o'clock, I was back in our apartment on Fifth Avenue, changing for the Met Museum Gala. Julian hated when I was late, but I made sure I was exactly 4 minutes early. Enough to look composed, not enough to look eager. He was already in the car with Marissa Chin, the 26-year-old product lead he'd hired 3 months ago. She was wearing a dress that cost more than most people's mortgages and laughing at something he'd said about disruption. I slid into the town car without a word. Julian glanced at me, then back at his phone. You look fine, he said. Thanks, I said. You look like you're already bored of the evening. Marissa giggled. Julian didn't correct her. At the museum, the press line was a wall of flashes. Julian put his hand on the small of my back, the way he always did when cameras were involved. Possessive, performative. I smiled for the photos, answered 2 questions about Vance Dynamics' philanthropic initiatives, and then drifted toward the champagne. That's when Elias Thorne walked in. If Julian was a rocket ship, Elias was the launch pad, self-made, silent, worth more than God and just as hard to read. He didn't do the red carpet, ever. But tonight, he was here, alone, moving through the room like the air parted for him out of habit. He stopped in front of me. Clara Whitmore, he said. His voice was lower than I expected, like gravel wrapped in silk. Mr. Thorne, I said. Didn't expect to see you here. Elias, he corrected. And I read your white paper on AI-driven energy grids 2 years ago. Still the only one that made sense. I blinked. You read that? Twice, he said. Page 14. The section on latency arbitrage between storage nodes? Brilliant. Shame it's buried under a husband who thinks decisive is a dirty word. I felt Julian before I saw him. The heat at my back. The shift in the air. Thorn, Julian said, stepping between us like a bouncer. Didn't realize you were on the guest list. Elias didn't move. Didn't blink. I wasn't. He said, I came for the conversation. Julian's jaw tightened. Clara's my wife. I'd appreciate it if you kept the recruitment pitches off the dance floor. Elias finally looked at him. Just looked. Long enough for Julian to feel it. I'm not recruiting. Elias said, I'm recognizing. Then he turned back to me. Walk with me. It wasn't a question. Julian grabbed my arm. Clara. I shook him off. Gently. Finally. It's fine. I said. I'm just standing where I should have been years ago. I walked away with Elias Thorne. Past the press. Past the whispers. Past the man who'd spent the last 5 years telling me I was lucky to be seen. Elias didn't say anything until we reached the balcony overlooking Central Park. The city was a grid of gold and shadow. You're not angry, he said. I'm done. I said, there's a difference. He nodded, like he'd known that already. I have a jet leaving for Zurich tomorrow morning. Private. No cameras. No footnotes. I looked at him. Is that an offer? It's an observation. He said, you've been solving his equations. I need someone who can solve mine. I laughed. Sharp and sudden. You don't even know me. I know you rewrote the prenup 3 weeks before the wedding and forgot to tell him. Elias said, I know you killed the Latham merger because the CFO was laundering through Malta. I know you've been carrying Vance Dynamics since 2019 while Julian took the bows. I stared at him. How do you know that? Because I pay attention, he said, unlike the man currently explaining to page 6 why his wife is standing next to me instead of him. I followed his gaze. Through the glass, Julian was surrounded by 3 board members and a very pale Marissa. His phone was in his hand. Mine buzzed once in my clutch. I didn't check it. Zurich, I said. What time? 9 a.m. Elias said, Teterboro, bring your own coffee. I smiled. Real. For the first time in months. Deal. Behind us, the gala swirled on. Deals were being made. Photos were being taken. Headlines were being written. And for the first time since I said I do, I wasn't part of Julian Vance's story. I was the beginning of my own. The ride home was silent. Julian didn't speak until the elevator doors closed. What the fuck was that? He said. That, I said, was me remembering who I am. You're my wife, he said, like repeating it would make it true. I'm Clara Whitmore, I said, and starting tomorrow, I'm not doing this anymore. He laughed, bitter and wrong. You'll be back. You always come back. I looked at him, really looked, and realized I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not hurt, just done. No, Julian, I said, I won't. The elevator opened. I walked out. He didn't follow. That night, I packed 1 suitcase, not because I needed much, because I didn't want much. At 7:03 a.m., a car arrived. I left the key to the apartment on the kitchen island, next to the copy of the prenup he'd never bothered to read. At Teterboro, Elias was already on the tarmac, phone to his ear, jacket slung over one shoulder. He ended the call when he saw me. Ready? He asked. I nodded. Let's solve something worth solving. He didn't smile, but his eyes did. And just like that, the game changed. The cabin pressure changed before I did. Elias handed me a coffee before I'd even sat down. Black. No sugar. Exactly how I drank it. I didn't ask how he knew. You didn't sleep. He said. I slept enough. I said. You packed 1 suitcase. He said, settling into the seat across from me. Left the jewelry. Took the prenup annotated in red ink. Smart. I raised an eyebrow. You went through my bag. I read the flight manifest. He said, your bag weight was logged. 13 pounds under allowance. Jewelry cases weigh more. I almost smiled. Almost. You've been planning this longer than last night. He said, I've been planning it since the day he told me my name didn't need to be on the founding documents because it looked cleaner. Elias nodded once. Julian's version of clean is everyone else doing the work while he takes the photo op. The engines kicked in. I watched New York shrink through the window. Somewhere in that grid, Julian was waking up to an empty apartment and a very different kind of headline. Page 6 already ran it, Elias said, handing me his iPad. There I was, standing next to him at the Met. The caption, Thorne's mystery woman? Billionaire spotted with Vance's wife. I handed it back. He'll spin it. He already is. Elias said. He gave CNBC a quote this morning. Said you were exploring personal interests and that Vance Dynamics remains founder-led and focused. I laughed. Short and dry. Founder-led. Right. Elias leaned forward. I don't do PR stunts. Clara, I do leverage. And right now, you're the most valuable piece of leverage in his world. I'm not leverage. I said, you're not his wife anymore either. Elias said, so what are you? I met his eyes. I'm the person who knows where every skeleton is buried in his cap table. Good, Elias said. Then let's start digging. By the time we landed in Zurich, my phone was a brick of notifications. I turned it off before we deplaned. Elias didn't ask. He just handed me a satellite phone. Use this. Encrypted. Generous. I said. Practical. He said. Julian will try to reach you. Don't answer. But read everything. Every threat. Every bribe. Every mistake. In the car from the airport. He laid it out. Thorne Industries has a hole. He said. Not in revenue. In strategy. I've got the capital. The tech. The global footprint. What I don't have is someone willing to tell me I'm wrong when I am. You think I'll tell you you're wrong? I asked. I know you will. He said. That's why you're here. What's the title? I asked. Chief Strategy Officer. He said. Public. Reported to me directly. Equity from day one. No golden handcuffs. If you quit, you keep what you earned. And if I stay, then we rewrite the rules of 3 industries before breakfast. I didn't hesitate. When do I start? Now, he said. The Zurich office was glass and steel and silence. No open floor plans. No ping-pong tables. Just people who looked like they'd forgotten how to waste time. Elias introduced me to the executive team in a conference room with no windows. Clara Whitmore. He said, CSO, if she asks for data, you give it. If she tells you a deal is dead, it's dead. If she says I'm wrong, you listen. One of them, a CFO type with a German accent, frowned. With respect, Mr. Thorne, we don't know her track record. You know Vance Dynamics' last 3 acquisitions. Elias said, she structured everyone. You know the regulatory dodge that kept them out of the DOJ's crosshairs? That was her. You know why their margins doubled in 18 months. Her model. You've been competing against her for years. Now she works for me. Silence. I leaned forward. Here's the track record you care about. Julian Vance is about to announce a secondary raise to shore up liquidity ahead of the EU antitrust review. He'll price it high, dilute minority holders, and use the proceeds to buy back preferred shares tied to his personal guarantees. If you want in, we move before the bell tomorrow. If you don't, you lose the entry point. The CFO blinked. How do you know that? Because I wrote the term sheet. I said, and I left myself a copy. Elias didn't smile, but his mouth twitched. By midnight Zurich time, Julian's messages started coming through on the satellite phone. Don't do anything stupid. We can talk equity. You're my wife. This looks bad. Clara, answer me. I'll double your stake. I'll make you co-chair. Don't make me ruin you. I forwarded them all to Elias. He read them in the hotel bar, then deleted them. Predictable. He's scared. I said, he's not scared of losing you. Elias said, he's scared of looking like he lost you. There's a difference. So what do? We let him keep talking. Elias said, every message is a confession. Every threat is a data point. By the time he realizes it, we'll own the narrative. 2 days later, I flew back to New York, alone. The apartment on Fifth Avenue was exactly as I'd left it. The prenup still on the island. The key gone. Julian was waiting in the lobby. He looked like he hadn't slept. Suit rumpled. Eyes red. "You're making a mistake," he said the second I stepped out of the elevator. "Hello to you too," I said. "Thorne's using you," he said. "You think he cares about you? You're a headline." A middle finger to me. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly how you treated me for 5 years." He stepped closer. "I built this for us. Clara, you built it for you," I said. "I was just the silent partner you didn't have to pay." "I paid you," he said. "You live in a penthouse. You wear the clothes. You fly the jets." "And what did I trade for it?" I asked. "My name off the patents. My models buried in footnotes. My advice dismissed in rooms I helped build." "You're being dramatic," he said. "I'm being accurate," I said. "And you know it." He ran a hand through his hair. "What do you want?" "Name it. I'll give it to you. Just don't go public with Thorne. Don't do the CSO thing. Don't make me look like a fool." I pulled a folder out of my bag and handed it to him. He opened it. Inside were the pages of the prenupevry clause he'd ignored. Every right I'd retained. Every exit ramp I'd built into the marriage contract while he was busy taking bows. "You." He looked up. "You did this before we got married?" "I did it because I knew you'd do exactly what you did," I said. "And I needed a way out that didn't cost me everything I'd built." "You can't do this," he said. "I already did," I said. "The filings go to the court tomorrow. The press release goes live at 9 a.m. Thorne Industries announces my appointment. Vance Dynamics announces our separation. Clean, public, irrevocable." He stared at me. "You're really going to stand next to him?" "I'm going to stand next to someone who sees me," I said. "That's not a betrayal, Julian. That's a correction." He didn't stop me when I walked out. The next morning, the headlines hit before I did. Thorne Industries names Clara Whitmore Chief Strategy Officer, Vance marriage over. Sources cite strategic differences, Wall Street reacts. Vance Dynamics drops 6% pre-market, Elias called while I was in the car to the office. "You didn't wait for me," he said. "You said start now." I said. "I meant it," he said. "But I would have liked to watch him squirm in person." "He's squirming," I said. "Just not in front of you." "Good," Elias said, "because this isn't about him anymore. It's about what you do next." "I'm going to dismantle his leverage," I said. "One deal at a time." "Then welcome to the war room," Elias said. "We've got work to do." And for the first time since I said I do, I actually meant the word yes. The first time I walked into Thorne Industries' 37th floor war room. I didn't sit down. Elias was already there, sleeves rolled to the elbow, tie loose, staring at a wall of monitors like they owed him money, which, in a way, they did. "You're late," he said. "I'm early for someone who doesn't report to you," I said. "But since I do, good morning." He didn't smile. Vance Dynamics dropped another 3% after the bell. Julian's calling it a market overreaction to personal news. "He's lying," I said. "It's not the news. It's the options expiry tomorrow. He's trying to stabilize the strike price so his preferred shares don't get margin called." Elias turned. "Show them." I walked to the center console, plugged in my drive, and lit up the main screen. "These are the dark pool trades from the last 48 hours. Look at the timestamps. Every dip coincides with a block sale from Julian's personal brokerage. He's bleeding liquidity to prop up the stock." Across the table, Miranda Kroll, Thorne's head of MA, leaned forward. "If he's selling into his own bids, that's desperation." "It's worse," I said. "He's using the corporate credit facility to collateralize the margin. If we push the price below 27, the bank syndicate triggers a covenant breach. Automatic default." Elias nodded once. "Do it." Miranda hesitated. "An open hostile bid this fast will trigger a poison pill." He hasn't filed the rights plan yet. I said, the board meeting was supposed to be next Tuesday. I delayed it in the system before I left. They think it's scheduled. It's not. Elias looked at me. You set this up before you resigned. I set it up before the Met. I said, I just didn't know if I'd need it. You need it, Elias said. By noon. The wire services had it. Thorn Industries launches $8. To be hostile bid for Vance Dynamics. Julian responded in 90 minutes. Ms. Whitmore. His lawyer's voice came through on the secure line. Cold and clipped. Mr. Vance considers this an act of personal and professional bad faith. He's prepared to seek injunctive relief. Tell him to save the motion for the judge. I said, the filing is clean. The financing is committed, and the board knows it. This is about more than the company. The lawyer said, he's authorized me to discuss a private settlement. Generous. Put him on. I said, a pause. Then Julian's voice, low and furious. You're really doing this. You forced the timeline. I said, I just filled it. You think Thorne gives a damn about you? He said, you're a pawn, a distraction. When he's done, you'll be yesterday's headline. Funny. I said, that's exactly what you said about me 5 years ago. Except now, I'm the one holding the cash. Clara, save it. I said, I've read the draft complaint. I've read the standby equity agreement. I've read the side letter you signed with the Saudis that violates your fiduciary duty to the common shareholders. You want to sue me? Try. I'll depose you so deep you'll wish you'd stayed in the Hamptons. He was quiet. Then, what do you want? I want the company. I said, and I want you out. You'll destroy everything I built. No, I said, you built it on sand. I'm just pointing out the tide. I hung up. Elias was watching from the far end of the room. You didn't flinch. He trained me not to. I said, by evening, the press was feral. CNBC ran a segment titled The Wife Who Broke the Market. Julia Chatterjee, the anchor, called it the most aggressive spousal exit in Wall Street history. Julian gave an interview outside Vance HQ. Clara is a brilliant woman, he said, smiling like it didn't hurt. But this is a personal matter being exploited for corporate gain. I won't let it distract us from our mission. 10 minutes later, Thorn Industries issued a statement. Our focus is on value creation, not personal narratives. Ms. Whitmore's track record speaks for itself. Then Elias did something no one expected. He held a press conference. No podium. Just him. A single microphone. And me standing 2 feet behind. Clara Whitmore is not a footnote to this story, he said. She is the author of it. Anyone who thinks otherwise hasn't been paying attention. A reporter shouted, is this about revenge? Elias didn't blink. It's about results. Another, will you replace Mr. Vance? We're not replacing him. I said, stepping forward. We're removing him. The room went silent. Julian's response came an hour later via Twitter. Disappointed, but not surprised. Some people choose ego over legacy. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The markets did it for me. Vance Dynamics closed down another 5%. That night, Elias and I stayed in the war room, past midnight. He'll go nuclear now, Elias said. He already is. I said, anonymous leaks to the Post. Whispers about my mental state. Old photos from Aspen. Cropped to look compromising. Can you prove they're false? I don't need to. I said, I need them to look desperate, which they already do. Elias leaned back. You're not defending yourself. I'm not playing defense. I said, defense is for people who think they have something to lose. He studied me for a long moment. You know he'll come after the prenup next. He already filed. I said, I got the notice this afternoon. He's claiming duress, saying I manipulated him into signing. Did you? I gave him the chance to read it. I said, he chose not to. That's not duress. That's arrogance. Elias allowed himself a small smile. You're enjoying this. I'm finishing it. I said, the next morning. Julian's lawyer sent over settlement offer. Full divorce. Drop the hostile bid. Walk away with 50 million and a confidentiality clause. I wrote one line in reply and sent it back. Make me care. Elias read it over my shoulder. Cold. Clear. I said. Good. He said. Clarity wins wars. By noon, we had the votes. 3 of Julian's independent directors had quietly flipped after seeing the covenant breach memo I'd leaked through a proxy advisor. The 4th called me directly. We're not monsters. Clara, he said, but we have a duty to shareholders. You have a duty to reality. I said, Julian's out of cash, out of time, and out of credibility. If you back him now, you're backing a corpse. He sighed. We'll support the Thorn bid. Quietly, loudly. I said, or not at all. He agreed. That evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. You win, but you lose me forever. I didn't respond. Elias found me on the balcony, satellite phone in hand, watching the city blink. He's done, Elias said. He's not done. I said, he's just out of moves. You sound disappointed. I'm not, I said. I'm just surprised how small it feels. Elias stood beside me. Winning always does. Until the next game starts. What's the next game? I asked. He looked at me. You are. And for the first time since the Met. I wondered if I'd traded one kind of war for another. But I didn't wonder for long. Because I was winning. And I wasn't finished. The court filing hit Pacer at 5:17 a.m. By 5:43, CNBC was calling it the first 9-figure divorce to move markets. By 6:02, Vance Dynamics was down 4% in pre-market. Elias was already in the war room when I walked in. Coffee in one hand, tablet in the other. Expression unreadable. He's contesting the prenup. Elias said without looking up. Of course he is. I said. He doesn't have a choice. If he lets it stand, he loses control of the voting shares I'd buried in the trust. His counsel's arguing duress. Elias said, claiming you manipulated him emotionally during the engagement. I laughed. Sharp and humorless. Manipulated him. Right. The same man who rewrote the bylaws while I was picking out China. Elias finally looked at me. Do you care? I care that he thinks a judge will buy it. I said, I care that he's still underestimating me. Then let's stop caring. Elias said, and start closing. The morning partner's call was brutal. Miranda Kroll led with numbers. If the divorce drags, the acquisition clears SEC review slower. Every week of delay costs us $40 million in hedging exposure. Then we don't wait for the divorce. I said, we use it. Across the line. Our lead M.A. counsel, David Reyes, cleared his throat. Clara, if we weaponize the marital proceedings, we risk reputational blowback. Thorn Industries is supposed to be above personal vendettas. We're not weaponizing the divorce. I said, we're contextualizing the governance failure. Julian Vance is so compromised by personal litigation, he can't fulfill his fiduciary duties. That's not a vendetta. That's a 10K disclosure. Silence. Elias spoke. Do it. By noon. The first headline hit. Vance personal litigation raises governance concerns at Vance Dynamics. Julian's response was predictable. A press gaggle outside the courthouse. This is a private matter being exploited for corporate gain. He said, jaw tight. Clara and I are resolving things amicably. The idea that I'm unfit to lead is laughable. Laughable. I watched the clip in the conference room, then turned to Elias. He's still thinking like a husband. We need him thinking like a target. Already done, Elias said. He slid a single page across the table. A trading memo. Internal only. Authorized by him. Approved by me. We're shorting the August calls. I said, 600,000 contracts. Elias said, enough to move the strike without triggering a circuit breaker. If he tries to defend the price, he burns what's left of his liquidity. And if he doesn't, Miranda asked, then he loses the company anyway. I said, either way, He's finished. The next morning, Julian's lawyers filed a motion to seal the divorce records. They cited commercial sensitivity and marital privacy. I filed a response within the hour. Plaintiff's claim of privacy is undermined by his own public statements regarding corporate stability. Selective confidentiality is not a shield against fiduciary review. David Reyes called me directly. You're not leaving him a shred of dignity. He lost that when he called me mentally unstable to the asterisk post-star. I said, this isn't about dignity. It's about discovery. Discovery is going to get ugly. Good, I said. I've been keeping receipts since 2019. The discovery dump hit 3 days later. 50,000 emails, 12,000 attachments, internal memos, side letters, offshore account logs, proof that Julian had been moving corporate funds into personal hedges since the Series B. The board panicked. 2 members resigned by lunch. The third called me. Clara, he said, voice low. This can't see daylight. It already did. I said, your name's on half those memos. I was following instructions. He said, then get in front of it. I said, call an emergency session. Remove him, or I'll do it through the consent solicitation and you'll spend the next 5 years in depositions. He hung up. By evening, the board announced Julian's temporary leave of absence for personal reasons. The stock dropped 9%. Elias met me in the private elevator. You're not temporary. Neither is the damage. I said, that night, Julian texted me from a blocked number. You're killing me. I loved you. This isn't who you are. Clara, please. I forwarded them to Elias. He read them, then deleted them. He's not asking for mercy. He's asking for control. He's asking for time. I said, and we're not giving it to him. The next morning, Thorne Industries announced the completion of the tender offer. 51.3%. Controlling interest secured. The press conference was held in the same room where Julian had dismissed my input 3 months earlier. Elias stood at the podium. Effective immediately, Clara Whitmore will serve as interim CEO of Vance Dynamics. Julian Vance has been removed from all executive and board positions. A reporter shouted, is this a conflict of interest? No, I said, stepping forward. It's a correction. Another. Will you pursue criminal charges? That's not my decision. I said, that's up to the U.S. attorney. Julian's statement came an hour later. 1 sentence. Posted to X. I built something real. She burned it down. I didn't respond. Elias found me in the empty boardroom afterward. You could have been crueler. Cruelties for people who still care. I said, I don't. He studied me. What now? Now, I said, we fix what's left. And we make sure no one ever calls me his wife again. Elias nodded once. Then let's get to work. And for the first time since the Met, I wasn't standing next to power. I was it. The annual meeting was moved from the Midtown Auditorium to Thorne Industries, Lower Manhattan headquarters. Security was tighter than a Fed rate hike. Shareholders weren't just restless, they were terrified. I stood backstage, reading the final vote tally on my tablet. 51.3%. Unaffected by the last-minute injunction Julian's new counsel had filed in Delaware. Elias had killed that motion before my coffee cooled. He's here, Elias said, stepping into the green room. Of course he is, I said. He wants the cameras to see him walk in like he still owns the place. Let him, Elias said. The longer he stays, the more the record reflects his obstinance. I looked up. You've been waiting for this longer than I have. I've been waiting for you. Elias said, this is just the paperwork. The meeting convened at 9 on the dot. I didn't sit in the CEO chair. I stood at the podium. Julian was in the 3rd row, flanked by 2 junior associates, who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. The presiding inspector read the results. On the proposal to remove Julian Vance as director and officer, the vote carries on the proposal to appoint Clara Whitmore as Chief Executive Officer and Director. The vote carries. Polite applause. Some whistles. A few stunned silences. Julian stood. Point of order. The inspector looked to me. I nodded. I was not afforded due process. Julian said, "This is a coup disguised as corporate governance. Your due process expired when you breached the credit facility to support your margin loans." I said, voice steady, "This isn't a coup. It's a cleanup. You're destroying shareholder value." He said, "Shareholder value was destroyed the day you prioritized your image over the balance sheet." I said, "Today is recovery." He stepped toward the stage. Security tensed. I didn't move. "You'll regret this," he said quietly, for the microphones to miss. "I regretted marrying you," I said, loud enough for the live stream. "Everything since has been an improvement." He left without another word. By noon, the press had rewritten the narrative twice. Clara Whitmore takes full control of Vance Dynamics. Julian Vance exits in disgrace. Thorne-backed CEO completes hostile turnaround. Elias joined me in the executive dining room, where we ate lunch neither of us tasted. "You didn't gloat," he said. "Gloating is for people who didn't expect to win." I said, "I expected this the day I signed the prenup." "You've changed," he said. "I stopped apologizing for knowing what I'm worth." I said. He set his fork down. "I don't offer partnerships lightly. You've said that before." "I'm not talking about a title," he said. "I'm talking about everything. Thorne Industries, Vance Dynamics, the platform we haven't built yet. Equal say, equal risk, lifetime." I didn't answer immediately. I watched the skyline instead. "Lifetime's a long time," I said. "So is irrelevance." He said, "I'd rather risk the former than settle for the latter." "What's the catch?" "No catch," he said. "Just a handshake worth more than most people's net worth." I extended my hand. He took it. "No cameras. No audience. Just a deal, sealed the old-fashioned way." That night, Thorne Industries hosted a reception on the top floor. No press, just the board, senior leadership, and a handful of regulators who owed Elias favors. Julian didn't attend. His statement to Bloomberg was terse. "I wish Clara the best in her new role. I'm moving on to personal projects." Elias raised a glass as the room quieted. "To the woman who made the market blink." He lifted Mina. "To the man who didn't flinch when I did." We drank. Around us, the city glowed like a circuit board. Later, on the balcony, Elias stood beside me, hands in his pockets. "You could have taken the money and disappeared," he said. "I could have," I said. "But disappearing is what people do when they're afraid of being remembered." "You're not afraid," he said. "I'm not interested," I said. "Fear is for people who still think they have something to lose." He smiled, then actually smiled. "Welcome to the top, Clara." I looked out over Manhattan. The empire Julian had built and I had dismantled. The one Elias and I would rebuild on our terms. "I'm not at the top," I said. "I'm just done letting other people define the altitude." Elias didn't reply. He didn't need to. The game wasn't over. It had just changed players. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't playing by someone else's rules.